Hello, everyone, and welcome to what I'll call sort of the real beginning of 2D animation and interactivity. This is a video called Animate Basics. Unlike some of the other videos, or mainly sort of all the other videos that I'm going to show this semester, this Animate Basics doesn't end in an exercise for the most part, and you're going to sort of see a few others today that do end in an exercise, meaning you are going to follow some step-by-steps, watch the video, those two coincide, and get something done, get some technical stuff done. This Animate Basics I always do as sort of an introduction to the interface, sort of how Animate works, what it looks like, where to find things, and I would expect that you just sort of follow along on your computer. I think what's good about these video captures, as this is an online course, is you can sort of pause the video, kind of tinker around a little bit, try to find what I am looking for, and sort of follow along with me. So, a few things before I get into Animate. First and foremost, Animate is a piece of software that actually recently changed names, probably within the last 9 months or year. It used to be called Flash, or Flash Professional. If I slip and say Flash, I mean Animate. I've been working with Flash and now Animate for 15 years or so, so it's just ingrained in my vocabulary that I call it Flash. I will do my best to call it Animate, so just sort of be aware of that. Second is that I'm going to sort of go over, again, some of the basics here. As we move through the semester, I'm going to introduce different ways of sort of looking at Animate, working with it, and I would expect that you guys sort of have the same flexibility that I do. And the reason I sort of mention this is you, at this point, hopefully have Animate downloaded as a Creative Cloud piece of software. Creative Cloud is different, and it's sort of becoming more the standard in terms of software, in the way that we download that piece of software, and that software consistently updates. It might be annoying, but your computer is probably going to be telling you throughout the semester that Animate has an update, and do you want to update? I tend to update when I sort of see these updates, and unlike old pieces of software, the idea is that you are consistently sort of adding to the little piece of software you have. In the old days, you used to sort of come out with a new version of a piece of software, and that was kind of it for a year or so. Then they would come out with a new one. In this case, Adobe is sort of consistently updating this. They might be fixing a little bug, who knows, but the expectation is you are working with the same version that I am. It might look slightly different on a PC or a different operating system, but for the most part, it should look the same. I'm working on a Mac. The only time that might become an issue is if I occasionally will mention a keyboard shortcut that's going to be different on a PC or, again, different operating system. So just be aware that you're responsible for sort of keeping up with this version of Animate. So let's head into Animate. And I'm going to sort of basically talk about the structure, what it does, different sort of workspaces, etc. So when you open up Animate, you likely see something like this. I'm going to create an ActionScript 3.0 file. This is just sort of a generic file. And what this does, or let me back up, ActionScript is a scripting language that is attached to Animate, and it is the thing that allows for interactivity. Mid-semester, we're going to get into interactivity, meaning you get to push something and something else happens, etc. That's sort of what this ActionScript 3.0 means. This is the main file type that we're going to create throughout the semester. The other one to mention is HTML5. The olden days, and I will sort of say Flash here, used to allow for, and it still does, but the sort of insertion of Flash files, and these are going to be called SWF files, SWF. These are going to be what you're handing in. And you might see something on a web page, meaning a very common thing is, say, a banner ad. Things have changed in HTML, which is the language that drives web pages, in the past few years has turned to HTML5. This is a new language, newish language for web browsers and web programming, and it wasn't as friendly to these Swift files. So if you want to sort of create something for the web that is part of a web page, you might be using an HTML5, what's called Canvas. It turns your animations into basically a script or something that a browser is going to read and create an animation from that. However, your class is called 2D animation. We're using this mainly for an animation tool. There are lots of different types of animation tools. Historically, this is a very good one for flat or what's called 2D graphics. So we're going to sort of forge ahead with it. So I'm going to hit ActionScript 3.0 and I head into my workspace. A couple things to note. Now I'm going to go way up to the top here. You have all these different options, and it looks like maybe some of these are cutting off. I'm going to basically always be working in Classic. You can sort of play with these, and you'll see if you change, you get different panels open, color, alignment, etc. Essentials is sort of a pop open here, a minimal one. I like Classic. It's just maybe a habit, but that's what I'm going to be working in. We're going to open up different panels as we play around, but for the most part, I'll be working with Classic. A couple things to note, and this is just locale. Over on the left, we have our tools. Okay, if you don't see any of the stuff that I see, you might go over to Window, and this is where we can sort of check that things are, we can sort of see things. Up here we have the timeline. At this point I would assume you know that animation is going to involve a timeline. This is not static graphics like something like Photoshop or Illustrator. So these, what's called frames, they're going to sort of represent time. Once we get into making something, this red thing is our playhead, and that will move across time there. If you have longer animations, you can sort of slide this bar and sort of see up into space here. I'm going to sort of move directionally. A couple other things to notice. Right here in this little bar, which is below our timeline, we have our scenes, and it's the little kind of clapper, I forget what they're called, little scene clapper. This is going to allow us to sort of move from one scene to another. Animate is structured so that you can create different scenes. What that means is that you kind of have these files within the file. So kind of imagine it maybe like if you have a Microsoft Word document, you have multiple pages. These sort of represent different scenes. Maybe one scene is 100 frames long because it's a quick intro, and then you have a longer scene that's your sort of second scene. Who knows? We're going to sort of deal with that pretty quickly in some exercises. Over here on the right, well, here you have a little sort of shortcut panel which deals with color, swatches, info, alignment, transform. I will sort of pop these open occasionally during exercises as shortcuts. We can get to these things other ways, but these are sort of, again, sort of a simple shortcut to some basic things we're going to use often. Over here on the far right are two panels. One's called Properties and one is called Library. For the most part, a lot of what we're going to do at the beginning of the semester live in these two panels. Library is sort of where what's called our symbols live. That'll make sense once we get to our first exercises. And Properties is sort of a panel that allows us to sort of alter, change, whether it's location, color, who knows, to the things we're animating on the stage. So I said stage. This is what's called our stage. You can see actually over here on the right that we can sort of change the stage color, but this is where the action happens. If you kind of remember one basic thing from this Flash Animate Basics is you have stuff over here in the library, and we're going to pull it over onto the stage, and then we're going to use the timeline to animate that. You'll see that as we move through the first couple exercises. Last thing I'm going to do is sort of talk about how this is different from other programs. And what I mean by that is this is a what's called raster-based, this is a vector-based program. It is different from a raster-based program. If you've never heard the term raster before, you've probably heard the term pixels. Flash does not, for the most part, work with pixels. It works with vectors. And I'm going to show you the difference here. I'm going to go over to just our oval tool, and I'm going to draw something. Okay. When I zoom in on that thing, I'll zoom in real tight here, when I zoom in, I see this quite smooth. I don't see pixels like you would in something like Photoshop or an image on the internet. And the reason being is this is a vector-based program. Vectors are bits of math that the computer is doing to basically sort of show us graphic things. So in this case, I have, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit, I've drawn an oval, and that oval has what's called a stroke. That's the outer sort of area here, and it has a fill. I can sort of quickly go through, change that. I can change the stroke color, and I can size this thing. Unlike what's called our raster-based graphics, I can't sort of successfully size things. If I were to size up a teeny tiny image on the internet, most of you probably know that that would fall apart. It would get what's called pixelated. It would get a lot of noise. But with vector-based graphics, we can sort of size things, we can move things around, and we can sort of change the scale of it pretty successfully without losing quality. Vector graphics move very, very fast. I always say computers are really good at math, and you're going to see that Animate allows us to sort of make changes very quickly and animate things very quickly without too much sort of labor-intensive work on the computer's part. That is not the case when we're dealing with pixels. Pixels are bits of information, and the computer has to sort of compile, know each pixel, that it's this color and it's that color and it's this darkness and it's this lightness. This is a vector-based graphic. Generally speaking, it's flatter graphics, flatter colors, though we can get into some basic gradients with this. So later in the semester, we are going to work with photographs, which are sort of raster-based things, but we're going to sort of alter them a bit so that Animate can deal with them in a bit. But with that said, remember that this is vector-based and sort of remember the basic structure. If you're not familiar or you're sort of intimidated by this interface, watch this video again, play around, make sure you're sort of in this classic mode, and make sure you're sort of familiar with each of these locations. As we move into the exercises, which we're going to do right here in a minute, I'm going to be referring to the timeline. I'm going to be referring to the library. I'm going to be referring to the properties. So understanding the basic structure here is pretty important. So that's it for Animate Basics. At this point, you should be heading into the video, and I do suggest you do them in order this time. Some weeks it's not going to necessarily matter, but it is going to be making a simple motion tween. That's going to be your first one, and your second one is going to be called making a simple shape tween. One quick thing I want to mention, and I'm going to bring in my browser window here. This is my office hour. Okay, whoops, let's see here. Our office hours are online because this course is online. I don't get a lot of traffic in office hours. Please check the syllabus for office hours. If I remember correctly, they're 9:30 to 11:30 on Thursdays. That's generally speaking when I'm going to be uploading videos, getting things done, though I may do them earlier in the week. I encourage you to use office hours. You can always email me, but office hours, I'm here. It sort of works like a Gmail chat or whatever. And note that it lives in, and I believe it's the same for students, it lives in communications chat. You'll see the date. You'll see a little note by me that says here to help with anything. If you click on that, if you join the chat, and then we can just sort of talk to each other, you can say, hey, I'm having trouble finding X, Y, and Z. I don't understand what you mean by this or that. And it's a good way to get one-on-one help with me. If I change these office hours, which occasionally I have to just because I have to take my son somewhere or whatever, I will denote that on D2L. Please note though, I'm always reachable, generally speaking, during the week on email. Occasionally I am not reachable on the weekends, but you can always try. So please use this chat. This is your office hours. Please note my face-to-face office hours on the syllabus as well. I am in my office, F1219 or in F2295 up in the Fine Arts Building. And I'm happy to talk with you face-to-face any of those times. Those of you who do go to Normandale for face-to-face classes, and several students in the past have sort of taken advantage, despite the fact that this is an online course, of those face-to-face office hours. So use the chat. I think it's useful. That is it for Animate Basics. You should be heading into the video making a simple motion tweet.